अस्सलाम वालेकुम व्यूअर्स, जैसे कि आपके इल्म में है कि अज़ान टीवी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री अल-निसा के नाम से बना रहा है जो कि वुमेन राइट्स के हवाले से है। तो इसी सिलसिले में हम लोग आज मैरियट होटल आए हैं क्योंकि मिस इवॉन रिडली साहिबा जो हैं वो उनका स्टे इधर है और वुमेन राइट्स डॉक्यूमेंट्री पर हम उनके कमेंट्स लेंगे। बस हमारी कोशिश होगी मिस इवॉन रिडली से जितना ज़्यादा मतलब उनकी जो रिसर्च है, जर्नलिस्ट हैं, उन्होंने ख़ुद वो यूरोपियन हैं और मुस्लिम सोसाइटी को भी वो समझती हैं, तो हम चाहेंगे जितना ज़्यादा उनसे हमें इस्तिफ़ादा हम ले सकें हम लेंगे इंशाअल्लाह। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum salam.
I want to know that about the past, that when you went to Afghanistan and how were you actually caught by the Taliban?
I had been in Afghanistan for 2 days and I was making my way back to Pakistan on a donkey. The animal bolted, and as I struggled to try and bring it under control, my camera slipped out of the burqa and it was seen by a Taliban soldier, and that essentially is how it all fell apart. I gave him the camera and then I closed my eyes waiting to be shot because I thought, this is Afghanistan, this is what happens. And after 10 seconds I opened my eyes and he'd gone. And he'd gone to see the donkey trader. He wanted to know who is in charge of this woman, then we can find out who is responsible for the camera. And so I realised I could get away because I was wearing the burqa, which is a great unifier, you know. It's a and I just thought, what's one more burqa in a crowd? And so I could have escaped. But I looked round and saw the two guides with me were in trouble, and so I went back, and it was well intentioned, but that was probably the last thing that they wanted me to do. And I tried to push through this crowd of men to get to the guides, and I was thrown back because this was not a woman's business in their view. And in the end I just took off my burqa. I was wearing a shalwar kameez, and I shouted, will someone let me through? And suddenly everyone froze and looked and thought, where has this Westerner come from? And I walked towards the guides and the soldier, and then I looked very quickly at my guides and I realised by the expression on their face, this is not what they wanted. You know, they were in enough trouble without me doing this.
So how did you get so bold? I mean, you are bold, I know, but still, what was the motivating factor? I mean, that you were being so bold in front of Taliban as well?
Well, it's not being bold, it's just, you know, this, it was just a sense that I couldn't abandon these two people who had helped me, and and that's why I went back. The other thing is, had I continued, I don't think that I could have lived with myself wondering what would have happened to the two men. And as it was, the Taliban had the camera and they would have developed the photographs and they would have seen that they, you know, I was a Westerner and that they had helped me. So I couldn't leave them behind.
Okay, so after you became reverted to Islam, did you face criticism? You must have faced criticism from many people. So how do you defend yourself in front of them? What do you say?
Well, some members of my family don't speak to me, some friends have gone, and all I say is, I haven't changed. I have changed my religion, and it wasn't a big change because I was a practicing Christian. I was already praying to God, just a different methodology. And essentially I have not changed. Their attitude towards me has changed.
Okay, when you read the Quran, what was that thing that inspired you the most, which made you think that, okay, this is right, this is the truth? What was that?
It was the sense of justice. Justice that is delivered in equal measure, not only to your friends and family, but to your enemy as well. And this really impressed me because as a Christian, you're told to go out and do good deeds and love your neighbour and do nice things. And anybody can get up and be really nice and benevolent and kind. And it's part of our human nature. But to actually sit in judgment and give equal treatment to somebody you don't like, as well as to say someone from your family, that is, that is strength, that is inner strength, and it was that theme of justice, and not to remain silent if you see an injustice.
How do you think that the women liberation movement has benefited the women folk?
Well, the women's liberation movement, and I was very much part of that network in the 70s, was compelled to rise up because women were treated very poorly in terms of equal pay, equal rights, respect. But I would say that the main problem with the women's movement at that time was that it was very narrow, and because of the way they protested and demonstrated and because of their demands, they made it very difficult for religious women, especially Muslims, and other women to be able to join the movement. So the feminist movement in the 70s did a very good job, but it was narrow in its membership and excluded a lot of women, which was a shame. And I don't think it was deliberate, but that was the net effect.
My next question is that since you have studied in England, and you must have studied the Roman civilization in your history classes, can you tell me that how did the Roman treated the women folk?
Well, historically, women have been treated miserably from the days of the Roman Empire. They were objectified, and they were treated as sex objects, and have been treated that way right up to the present day. You look at adverts and women are objectified in adverts. You can see an advert for a tractor and there'll be a naked woman there, and you think, what has a naked woman got to do with selling a piece of farm equipment? And every farmer I know would be more interested in what's under the bonnet of the tractor anyway. So women from the Roman Empire right through ages have been treated as sexual objects. And even in the Bible, women were portrayed right from Eve through to many major female figures in the Bibles were portrayed as women of temptation, women who led men astray, and the whole perception of women was one of being inferior and a person not to be trusted. And there are stories in the Bible, and it's really distressing the way that women are portrayed. You know, Islam in the West is the fastest growing religion in the world today, and the majority of those who are converting to Islam are career women, women in their late 20s, early 30s. Certainly in Britain, more than 100,000 have embraced Islam, and people wonder why. The reality is that the Holy Quran makes it abundantly clear that women are equal in spirituality, worth and education. We have an equal status in Islam, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made it crystal clear in his farewell message, his final message, that all human beings are equal, and no one will be judged on their power, their wealth, their beauty, but on their piety. And this is something that I particularly found very impressive. And even the language of the Quran is totally gender balanced as well. So sadly, there are patriarchal societies that try and subjugate and oppress women, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with Islam. Non-Muslims are under the impression that women are not allowed to be educated. Well, the Quran makes it clear that that education is very important, and there are hadith, that if you can't find education in the home, go out and get educated. So I think that that people are quite surprised when they read the Quran and the history of the early days. Women fought on the battlefield. The Prophet, peace be upon him, his Aisha led the battle of the camel. She led men into a battle. And yet people try and diminish the role of women, and we were right up there with the warriors, with the scholars, having major roles to play. When the Holy Quran was first compiled into a book form, it was entrusted into the care of a woman. So it's very easy to dispel the myths if people are prepared to listen.
Why are usually why do you think that the electronic media, especially the Western media, misleads people about the women folk in under Islam? Why do they usually make this propaganda? Especially when we saw in Afghanistan, they made the issue of hijab and all that. So why is it that?
Unfortunately, I mean, there's two reasons for it. Part of it is ignorance. They genuinely believe that Islam oppresses women. And more sinister, perhaps, is that some of them have an agenda to portray Islam in a very bad light. And like every faith, we have some crazy people in there who unfortunately will do something wrong which our enemy seize upon and just say, you see, this is what the Muslims are like. And it's very frustrating. But the media does have an agenda. You know, if you Googled the word Islam, there's a very strong likelihood that the word terrorism, for instance, will be in the same sentence.
Since you've been traveling in Muslim countries a lot, especially Pakistan and others, what do you feel that the Muslims over here are more, I'm talking about men, that they follow the culture more or the true Islamic doctrine?
Well, it's very difficult to generalise. But the Ummah is in serious trouble. It does exist. There is an Ummah. And unless we start unifying and pulling together and forgetting our differences I think that the situation will get a lot worse before it improves. You know, you read the stories of the early days and the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him and peace be upon all of them, and you read about the kindred spirit, the healthy competitiveness and rivalry, but always together. It's inspirational. And then you see where we are today, and it's pitiful. And you know, I have to say, I would say that the main fault lies with brothers. I meet lots of sisters, and we talk about problems in the Ummah. We talk about security, war, famine, bringing families together. And you get brothers, and they're talking on sectarian issues, on how somebody dresses, how somebody prays. This is bid'ah, this is haram, and it's, you know, focus on what unites. And I get really, you know, you look at Syria, there are brothers who are killing brothers. And if you said to them, who is your enemy? They would say, Assad. Who do you want to get rid of? They would say, Assad. But they're fighting each other. And they're setting up Sharia courts, and they're calling themselves emirs, and they're giving their battalions names after the companions or names after great historical figures of Islam. And you think, what are you doing? Get on with the business of fighting the war, get rid of Assad, and then come together in some sort of lawyer jirga and sit down and sort out everything. But stop playing at being an emir, or stop talking about what is going to happen in the future. Focus on the job in hand. But they're all over the place. They're disunited. You look in Afghanistan at the Taliban, whether you like them or loathe them, they have never changed their goal. They are united, and I'm sure that they must have their differences, but they put on a united front, and they have been constant in their battle to liberate their country, and they have never changed in that. And that, you know, has to be a lesson to how we should behave. But it's just not happening. We're fractured. We're disunited. Some people won't pray behind somebody else because he has his beard this way, or because he has his arms another way. And what is this nonsense? We're all praying to the one God. What defines us as Muslims? The 5 pillars of Islam. Not 3, not 4. The 5 pillars of Islam. We all believe in the one God. We all believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was his last messenger. That is what defines us as Muslims. And that is what we should focus on. Focus on what brings us together, not what pulls us apart.
Thank you very much.